Hello everybody, this is Graeme, and today I'm going to be looking at 3 small box games. But one of them may not be the smallest of box, but in the gameplay it's a small box game. So the first one I'm going to be looking at is one called Lemur Tails. A simple, quick game about making the longest lemur tail, and the person with the longest, shortest tail is going to be the winner at the end of the game. Let me quickly show you how this one's played. This is Lemur Tails set up. Each player starts with a set of lemur cards. 2 lemurs each, with each of their lemurs having a tail that ends with a different color. Each player also gets 2 sun-worshipping lemur cards, and all the rest of the cards are shuffled. Each player is randomly dealt 8 cards, and 8 more cards are drawn face up to create a market. Then add the endgame card amongst the last 10 cards randomly. The goal of the game is to create the longest tails. You score at the end of the game for the length of your shortest tail. Whichever player has the longest, shortest tail is the winner. On your turn, you will either play lemur cards or use your sun-worshipping lemur, and you can do this as many times as you want and in any order. To play tail cards, you have to check the color of the card and the number. If you want to add a card to one of your tails, it must be the opposite color to the previous one. The other restriction is it has to be the same number, or +1 or -1. You can play as many tail cards on your own lemur as you wish. You can also add tail cards to your opponent's lemurs as well, with the same restrictions. But for every card you add to an opponent's tail, you pick up 2 cards. To use your sun-worshipping lemur card, flip a card face down and do one of the 4 actions. Either take a card from the open market and add it to your hand or play it. Take the most recent card from your opponent's tail and add it to your hand or play it. Blindly draw a tail card from your opponent's hand and add it to yours or play it. Or discard 1 to 3 cards from your hand and draw the same number back up. Once the sun-worshipping lemur is face down, it cannot be used again until it's turned face up. To do this, you must add an uninterrupted series of at least 3 lemur tails to one of your tails in one turn. Then you can flip a face-down sun-worshipping lemur face up. If all of your sun-worshipping lemurs are already face up and you play an uninterrupted series of at least 3 tail cards, you can claim another sun-worshipping lemur. There are jokers in the deck that can be used as any number. If a joker is in a tail, it copies the number above it. Any joker in a tail can be exchanged on your turn. If a player has the exact card that will fill that joker spot, it can be exchanged. If you cannot play any more cards, you can end your turn and you can discard up to 3 cards, then replenish your hand up to 8 cards. The game ends when the end card is drawn. Then count the number of cards in each tail, and the player with the longest, shortest tail has won. So as you saw from the overview, this is a super simple game, but unfortunately not one that I found overly enjoyable or memorable. I understand this game is very random, and it might be good for families or with kids, but I just kind of find the game dull. Not that I dislike the game, I just didn't like the game. Due to the randomness of the game, you can have some really great long turns, or maybe be waiting for your opponent to finish their turn so you can play your one card that you can play. The game is short enough that I didn't mind the take that elements of the game, even if it can be frustrating at the time it happens, and the game is very quick to teach and to play. There are just so many other 2-player quick simple games that I'd rather play than this one, which kind of leads me down to say, if someone wanted to play this game, I wouldn't say no right off the bat, but I'd probably suggest something else first. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. The next game is Floating Floors. In this one, each player takes on the role of a ninja who is trying to locate and capture all of their bands and seals which are spread amongst the board. The main hook of this one is the dexterity element. You've been placing out wooden blocks onto the board and placing kind of floorboards on top of them, and each one of those is going to have different colored squares. You have to use more of your wooden pieces of your color, of course, to make the floor tiles match your ninja color to get across the board to collect your seals. Now, the main way dexterity comes into this is really the playing of your jutsu, the wooden pieces, and your ninja. You can only move one space at a time with your ninja, and if you want to move on to a space that's not your color, you have to make sure a color of your wooden piece is on there, and you're going to be placing your ninja on top of your colored wooden piece. Anyway, let's get it to the table, see how it's played. Here's Floating Floor set up for 2 players. After the board is set up with random tiles, each player takes their meeples, bansen, chakra, and 1 jutsu of each shape of their color. They place a chakra in the alcove above a tile, then alternating player colors fills in all the other alcoves with bansen. All the other components are off to one side. The goal of the game is to claim all of your bansen seals around the board. You need to deploy your jutsu to create paths for safe passage, and you can only go in spaces that are of your own color. So let's jump forward to a game in progress. A player's turn consists of 2 phases. First, they will roll all 3 dice and take the matching jutsu. You can take Jutsu from the supply, on top of the floorboards unless there's a ninja on top of that Jutsu, or from below a floorboard by lifting the floorboard up, removing the Jutsu and replacing it in the same orientation. If at any point on your turn, either getting Jutsu or moving your ninja causes a floorboard to touch the terrain or the table, or a ninja or a Jutsu falls, then you must end your turn immediately. The next player in turn order then resets the terrain card. All Jutsu, ninja meeples, and floorboards are gathered and must be arranged onto legal configurations on that terrain card. Pieces may be flipped, rotated, and moved from above to below and vice versa. Once that player has finished rearranging everything, even if it causes another collapse, they just redo it, the same player then begins their actual turn. Once you have collected your Jutsu, assuming you have not ended your turn, you can perform as many actions as you want by placing Jutsu, placing floorboards, moving your ninja, and claiming Bansen. You can continue to do these until you choose to end your turn or are forced due to a falling or causing a collapse as mentioned earlier. You can place a Jutsu from your supply, fully within the land space of a terrain card or fully within the floorboard space, and the pieces can be placed in any orientation. To place a floorboard, there must be at least one Jutsu on a terrain card, and take the topmost floorboard card and place it fully above the terrain card, balanced on the existing Jutsu. You can place it either side up, and there can only ever be one floorboard card above a terrain card. To move your ninja to an orthogonally adjacent space, that's not diagonally, it must end on a floorboard space that is the same color as your ninja, or on a Jutsu that is the same color as your ninja. The ninja must be completely removed from their space, and then placed on the new adjacent space, and then your hand must be removed before moving it to the next adjacent space. Until you let go of your ninja, you can change your mind and return it to its original position. The final action you can do is claim one of your remaining Bansen. Your ninja must be adjacent to it, then you pick up the floorboard and rotate it 90 degrees in the direction shown on the Bansen you want to collect. If you successfully place it back down without causing any pieces to fall, then you have successfully claimed your Bansen. If anything falls or the floorboard touches the terrain, table, then your turn is immediately over. If you are successful, your turn is also over, but you are one step closer to winning. The first player to recover all of their Bansen seals immediately claims victory. So Floating Floors turned out to be a fairly decent game, but not without some issues. One of my main issues is placing out the Jutsu and those floorboards. If I'm the first player, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place a Jutsu in the middle of a terrain card and then place a floorboard on top of that. But I'm not going to do it in front of me. I'm going to do it in front of another player. Since you can't add Jutsu underneath floorboards, it becomes impossible to add Jutsu to the top without tipping the floorboard over. Or place your ninja onto it, because your ninja is always going to be coming into the side, which again is going to tip that card over. If you try and knock it over on purpose, well, it's the next player in turn order that gets to rearrange how everything goes back. And they're probably just going to make it just as difficult for you. Now this can get very frustrating because you're not playing your own game, you're kind of denying other opponents from playing their game, if that makes sense. Eventually though, players do realize that the only way to move this game forward is to correct the situation, because their Bansen seals are on the same spaces or the same floor tiles as kind of ones you've sabotaged. But it's through this failure that it gets reset. Now the groups I played with soon realized that this was not a fun way to play the game, so tended to stay away from this albeit frustrating start to the game. So I did enjoy my plays of this one, and I think with one or two minor rules tweaks, like being able to push maybe Jutsu underneath floorboards with all the other restrictions, might work. But as it stands, it is almost a recommend, but not quite so. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. And the last game I'm going to look at is Chatuchak, about Thailand's largest market. Now your job is to rearrange market sections to create large groups of stalls next to each other. Each player will start with a preset but randomized market, and you're going to be competing against the other players to create the largest groups of markets to claim point markers. Now these point markers will probably change hands during the game many times, but you're never going to lose the basic points tokens that you've got from creating the market in the first place. Now one of the more interesting aspects of this game is the time track. Each round you're going to be rolling a die to see whether it meets the threshold to move the timer forward. So you're never quite sure when this game is going to come to an end. Anyway, let's get it to the table to see how it's played. This is Chatuchak setup. Each player has an identical set of booth tokens and is given a random setup tile. They will lay out their grid of boosts to match that tile. The time track, time marker, and the time die are given to the first player. The mixed markers are randomly placed and the tokens and markers are placed in the middle of the table. On a player's turn, they will move one booth to an empty spot on their grid, either horizontally or vertically. After the start player has taken their turn, they will roll a die. If the number is equal to or higher than the next time track space, move the time tracker up 1 spot. If you rolled lower, the tracker does not move, and each time the tracker does not move after the start player's turn, the required number to roll is reduced by 1, and you can mark this by placing the die with the new number required on the next space in the time track. For example, if the time tracker was here, and you did not roll a 5 or higher, place the die with a 4 showing so you know that the next round you only need to roll a 4 or higher for it to advance. The game ends when the time tracker reaches the final space on the time track. Now the way you get points in this game is to score points by claiming markets and tokens from the middle of the table. There's only one of each marker, and the player who currently fulfills the requirements places it in the section of booths. These markers are for the largest group of a particular booth color. This one's for the longest straight path or 3 or more booths of one color. The largest rectangular booths of the same color, so a 2x2 square or a 3x3 square all of the same color. And the mixed markers are for the player who has the largest, smallest group and a connected pair of groups with those colors. So how do you win these markers? Only on your own turn, and they can be from the middle of the table or from another player. You can only claim them if the booth you just moved is part of that marker's requirements, and only if you fulfill the requirements better than any other player. When you win the marker, take it from wherever it is and place it on the group of booths that now fulfill that marker. If the marker came from the middle of the table, take the matching token. If you claim the marker from another player, you take a general token from the middle of the table. You can never lose tokens, only the markers. If a marker is no longer fulfilled by your booths, place it beside your grid until you can replace it. But if you do replace it, you don't get any more tokens, or another player may take it from you. Once the time tracker reaches the final spot, go to final scoring. Score 1 point for each star in your markers and tokens that you have. Then check which of your colors has the highest sum of groups plus separate booths, and subtract that number from your score. Then the player with the most points is the winner. So I'm going to start this review off of this game kind of with my personal bias. The game very much feels like those sliding games that you got as a kid with one empty space and you're moving around the other blocks to kind of recreate the picture. I really, really dislike those puzzles. And unfortunately, that is what this game really feels like. Now, I do like the semi-randomized setup, and the setups do feel very balanced. It's not through sheer random luck that you're going to be able to get a perfect starting position. I also like that the markers do seem to change hands a fair bit at the higher player counts. At the higher player counts, this is going to happen much more, which I thought was good. At 2 players, it can get into situations where I'm concentrating on 2 or 3 colors and my opponent is going after other colors and are only really fighting over one color group. And because of that, those mixed goals generally help to mix that up and have something that you're going to be competing over even at 2 players. So I thought this game actually scaled very well. The time track is interesting, but I'm not 100% sure it really adds a lot to the game. When it gets close to the top, like the last 1 or 2 steps, you know you only have a few rounds left, and maybe you'll be able to get one more of those markers in the last round or so. But with moving only 1 piece per round, you're never going to have like this killer combo round where you're going bang, 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 bang. It's literally every round you're going, whoop. Do I get anything? Because the last turn of this game feels exactly like the first move of the game. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Again, not a bad game, but not one I'm going to coming back to on a regular basis. And that really kind of seemed to be the theme for all 3 of these games. None of them are terrible games. Some of them I definitely like more than others, but none of them I'm going to see myself coming back to play with any regularity. Of course, there might be some of you that this is going to be right up your alley and you love these games. So definitely let people know in the comments how off base I am for these games. But with that, that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.